have the greatest job in the world, and that's working with dogs.
Best in Show winner is the French Bulldog.
Winston won the National Dog Show. It was amazing. It was exciting. And to have a dog to be #1 dog in this country, you have to have great nutrition. And I always fed Pro Plan. Just like us, when we eat well, we feel good. And I just love that food and what it's done all these years to all the dogs I've bred and all the dogs I've shown.
All right, welcome you guys. Welcome to Pure Dog Talk. I am your host, Laura Reeves. And I have to say, I am super excited. I know you guys have heard me say this before, but it's true. We have a very special guest today talking about a really interesting and really uncommon breed in the United States. Desiree Ramirez is going to talk to us about Swedish Lapphunds. Okay, this is not Finnish Lapphunds, and it's not Icelandic sheepdogs, and it's not Swedish Valhunds. It's none of those things. It is
all
Swedish,
different. Yep.
Swedish Lapphunds. There are literally 36 dogs in the entire North America continent. And so so excited. Desiree, welcome. We were talking a little bit off air and I just got all jacked up. So here we go.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you. Yeah, no, when people say rare and I'm like, hi, that's us.
Right. Low entry breed. Yep, got it. Okay, so talk to us a little bit, just a really quick 411 about yourself, how you became interested and involved in such a niche breed.
So, again, my name is Desiree Ramirez. I have Norland Kennel. Norland actually means the Northland, which is what they call northern Sweden. Sort of homage to that.
There you go.
So my history was, prior to getting into the breed, I was elbow deep in the rescue world. I mean, going in onto Amish farms, pulling dogs out of the muck.
Wow.
I was an intake coordinator for rescues, going into homes and evaluating for owner surrenders, fostering dozens, you name it, I probably did it.
Right.
And I said, after one really bad experience, I was like, I'm done. Yeah. I want reliability and consistency out of the next dog I get. I needed to know what I was getting.
Yeah.
And I started looking around, but I had that I need to be a part of something feeling. I wanted to do something that was still preserving and still good.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to get into an odd breed. Yeah. And so I made a list. And at the top of my list was the Swedish Lapphund. And that's because I had a chow mix who looked like one. Obviously not one.
Right.
I had a chow mix who looked like one. And at some point, someone showed me remember that show Dogs 101 from Animal Planet?
Yep. Million years ago.
They did a little video on the Swedish Lapphund. And my friend looked at me and was like, hey, that looks like your dog. And I'm like, it's not, I guarantee you.
Right.
But it stayed in the back of my mind.
Right.
So I reached out to the one person who had a litter in the U.S. And she's like, oh, there's one that from my one litter that lives, a couple hours away from you. I'm like, okay, I'll go visit. Thinking I'll visit, then start going down the rest of my list.
Yeah.
I visited that dog and I was done. So I was like, I don't need to see the others on the list. We're good. And that was it.
Awesome.
I never left. That was back in 2017.
Okay.
2018. And I was like, I'm done. I want no part of any other breed. I'm sold.
So give us kind of the 411 of the Swedish Lapphund, why it is not the Finnish Lapphund, and some of that. There's some amazing history. And I was, kind of going through your site and talking to you earlier. This is going to be a fascinating deep dive for people. So go ahead on that.
It is. So the Swedish Lapphund is, we all like to say this, it is, it's one of the oldest breeds. It really is. We have archaeological evidence of these Lappish dogs going back 4,000 to 8,000 years. Like some of the first dogs in Scandinavia and Europe.
So kind of that archetype, right? The archetype of, so there's Mastiff breeds, there's Spitz breeds, there's Sighthound breeds. Those are kind of like the three archetypes. So you're talking about that level.
it's that level. They were like they were the land race archetype.
Okay.
And these dogs all encode haplogroup D. And specifically, when we talk about genetics, specifically subclad group D1. Now, haplogroup D, if you don't know anything about genetics,
Yeah,
is
you
the
guys,
most
this is great. I'm
recent.
like geeked out already.
Haplogroup D is the most recent haplogroup in dog genetics that has the most recent wolf ancestry, barring any, modern wolf mixes that we have. It is the most recent dog breed, dog type with wolf ancestry. That's why a lot of these dogs are these Spitzy. That's why they look so wolfy like. They have a lot of those holdover traits because they're so close. Subclad group D is specific to these Scandinavian breeds. So your Finnish Lapphund, your Swedish Lapphund, Laponian herders, all the elk hounds, the Norwegian, the Swedish, the Norwegian black, they're all coming from that one subclad D. So, and when people like me, okay, well, what is the Swedish Lapphund made of? And I'm like, they're not made of anything. Like, they come from that branch and then it branched out.
Okay. So differentiate them for us, because people will have seen Finnish Lapphunds or an Icelandic sheepdog or a Samoyed. Like put them in that frame of reference for people who, I mean, they're black. That's like what I got.
I know. I get the comment, oh, I didn't know they come in that color. And I'm like, they only come in this color.
Right.
No, so most people know the Finnish. And Finnish, you look in the ring and you see a rainbow of colors. Like black and tan, brown and tan. We'll say it's amazing. Swedish, the most jarring thing people know, they're black. We do have two other colors, however. We have what's called bear brown, which I like to say it's like the color of black coffee. It's black with a brown tinge.
Okay.
And then we have cream. Cream isn't a DQ. It's just not in the standard, so we treat it like a fault.
Okay.
It's the same it's the same genetic that makes yellow labs yellow.
Right. It's a dilute of,
Exactly. So when you look at a Swedish Lapphund, one of the big things you'll know besides color is that they should be longer in the body. They should have a little bit more rectangular to their appearance, and they should have more angulation.
Okay. So they're not just a black Finnish Lapphund. Like that's
they're not.
That's the thing that I want to make clear. They are completely separate.
They are very different.
Their own thing. Okay.
Yep. Their eyes are different. They should have this little bit more foxy look to them. When you look at one, you'd be like, that looks like a black fox. You should have that look of like, this is a really primitive looking dog.
Okay.
They should also have a glossy coat. When you see a Swedish Lapphund out in the sun, you should see that coat shine just like you sprayed a mirror over it.
Interesting. So is it does it lay differently than the Finnish Lapphund? Because the Finnish Lapphunds are kind of fluffy, right?
It's still fluffy and profuse, but you'll notice a lot of times, especially on the top line, it does tend to be a little flatter, a little sleeker. We also don't like coats to be exaggerated. We want to see the silhouette of the dog. If you should see the tuck, you should see all of that still. So we want a nice, good silhouette. And we do show our dogs even when they're not in coat. Okay. So you'll see that range in the show ring of ones that are heavy coated for this winter, but also really sleek almost. The other thing that makes them really different, this is where they really shine between the two of them, is their temperament. Okay. Swedish Lapphunds are a little bit more drivey. The first comparison I ever heard between the two of them was it's like comparing a V6 and a V8 engine. Like, cute. It is, one of them is just, the Swedish Lapphund is just going to drive and push, and they really want to work. But they also will they're the ones that's going to turn around and look at you in the yard and be like, okay, what are we doing next? Okay. That handler focus that they have. It is extreme. Like, They're always looking for you for that next thing that you want to do. And they don't really have that painted on ears that I know Finnish Lapphund people like to say that a lot.
Right,
Their ears are there and they work. And they're just usually also a little smaller and a little leaner.
Okay.
So when you look at a Swedish Lapphund, you're going to see a dog that is just, you're like, that looks like a weirder Finnish Lapphund at first.
Mm-hmm.
And you might look at it like, that's odd. But it's different.
So this is fascinating to me because both of the breeds, the Finnish and the Swedish Lapphund, from my understanding of what I read, originated with the Sami people, right?
Mm-hmm.
In
They did.
Scandinavia. So was it different regions? How did they sort of develop into their own pieces?
So the Swedish Lapphund, I know the name says Swedish, but they were actually just as popular in Norway. The Swedish Lapphund basically comes from Sweden and Norway. And the Finnish Lapphund, while covering those areas, mostly you would see in Finland. And one of the things is that the tribes that had the Swedish Lapphund really liked the darker dogs. They wanted dogs that would be stark against the snow, that didn't have the coloring of a predator, so no wolfy gray coloring. And they wanted dogs that were really sort of this very sleek looking dog. And you still look at photos from 140 years ago and the dogs look exactly the same.
Wow.
So there was very much a type that they liked. Mm-hmm. And what happened is Sweden beat Finland into registering the dogs. So the Swedish Kennel Club started in about 1893. Mm-hmm. And they registered a long-haired Lapphund as their first dog. Now that would eventually change in the 1950s to Swedish Lapphund. So they registered first, wrote the first standard, and said, this is what we like. And then the Finnish people got decades later on the ball. So it was one of those, is like, the Swedish said, this is what we like first. So they beat the Finnish people there.
And yet the Finnish Lapphund came to the U.S. first and went through the process and is now, pretty well established, I would say.
Yeah, I think the first Swedish Lapphund didn't come to the U.S. until 2004. Right. And that was by Patricia Arfsten from Clary Hill Kennel. And it was a female named Lottie. Lottie wasn't even able to have a litter, and it wouldn't be until 2015 that the first litter was bred here in the States. So 10 years ago was our first litter.
Wow. That's amazing. And give people a sense of, when we say the indigenous tribe and the region, talk a little bit about that, because that so much affects, right, the animals and the dogs that they choose based on the work that they do.
Yeah, so the Swedish Lapphund, or the Lappish dogs, were from the Sami people. And these dogs had to be versatile. They had to do everything. So hunting, herding, guarding, keeping the people warm. They had to do it all. There was no ability to specialize.
Right.
If the owner needed it, that dog was doing it. And to this day, they still like to have a variety within the litter of temperament. So you might have a dog that's really good at hunting, which we still have dogs hunting. Huh. And you might have one that herds, and you might have one that is really just a great couch potato. Huh. And they love that. They love that versatility and variety of temperament within the breed. We don't want a cookie cutter.
Interesting.
Trupanion is revolutionizing medical insurance for pets by providing the best possible experience to our members. And it's not some space-age dream. It's happening now. We pay your veterinarian directly while you're checking out, and we're the only ones who can, which means you have decisions in seconds, and you don't have to wait for reimbursement. So unlike with other providers, you'll keep more money in your pocket. Ask your veterinarian if Trupanion can pay them directly, because there's pet insurance, and then there's Trupanion.
you mentioned earlier the different, the Sami people. There's obviously different tribes in different regions. Then one of them was over to Finland, and one of them was over here in Sweden and Norway. And it's all cold, it's all snow, and reindeer. Is that our herding?
Yeah.
Livestock?
They herd. So in the Sami people, reindeer herding was their biggest thing. It's not sheep, not cattle. It's reindeer, and that's been going on since, I think, reindeer domestication started in about the 15th century.
Yeah.
That's the first documentation that we have, and including the dogs at that time. They talk about the dogs at that same time.
Interesting.
And so reindeer herding is a lot different than herding a cow or a sheep. Unlike those, the dog cannot touch the reindeer. So strictly they can bark, they can threaten. Touching the reindeer is a whole nother story. Don't touch the reindeer.
Seems like a bad idea to me, but what do I know?
Yeah. It's like, don't touch the reindeer because, one, that's a lot of stuff on the top of the head. And two, reindeer are actually really delicate. Like,
oh, interesting.
I know Linda Martin probably talked about that in her post when she talked about you, about like, they're very sensitive to disease, but they have super delicate legs. So a dog bite, if like a healer nips,
right.
If a reindeer herding dog was going to nip the leg, that deer might be then and done. Just, you might have to just let go. Yeah.
Wow.
So barking was how they herd. And that affected, the type of dog that comes out. You want a dog that's not prone to being mouthy. You want a dog that is loud, and they're known for that.
So, okay. So I'm now having a flashback to the Finnish Spitz National that I went to, where their job was to bark the birds out of the trees, and I'm like, yep, they're purebred.
And that's it. So people ask me, because they're like, when they see I say hunting, and they're like, wait a minute, this dog's in the herding group. And I'm like, yeah, but their first job was hunting. And they still are used. I think I know more dogs used for hunting in the breed than herding, actually. But they hunt by herding. And then they herd the moose, because mostly I see them used on moose and boar. They'll herd the moose and boar and then bark it to basically until the hunter comes and takes the shot.
This is so fascinating, because you mentioned earlier the haplogroup that also includes Norwegian elkhounds. That's what they do. So
it's exactly the same.
Yeah, no, it's literally, I talked to a Norwegian hunter, right, who hunts with her Norwegian moose with her Norwegian elkhounds. And that's what they do. So, I mean, to me, the as we were talking about off air, the archetypes, right? The British Isles produced 1 million terriers, and France produced 1 million spaniels, and the archetype from the northern European area is this Spitz that then was kind of broken out into regions, into systems, and all the rest of it.
And that's exactly it. This is just a Spitz that then broke away from the land race, the type. And, like the elkhound specialized in hunting. They got really good at that. And then you have the Lapphunds and the Finnish, which were more used for herding than the Swedish. So you have that sort of break, and they're really good at herding. And you got the Swedish Lapphunds, which, yeah, herding is what they're most known for, but they're like, we want them to still do it all. So they sort of just went this way on the branch.
Interesting. And I don't know, to me, that kind of stuff, the real archetype land race and how they then came down to where we are today is just a fascinating and beautiful story. The other thing that I think is incredible, and I've talked to other people about this, I've talked to a lot of people with a variety of FSS breeds, I've judged FSS shows, and it is my experience, my, eyewitness experience, that the passion, the most excited and passionate group of people that I encounter at any dog show is at the FSS group. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
talk a little bit about your club, because you mentioned something off air that none of you guys came from other like purebred dogs.
No, none of us did. There is not a single person in our club that was showing dogs before they had a Swedish Lapphund. Like zero, zip. Um, all of us have dog experience and
Sure.
some purebred, but not like in the same way. Like it's not
Hmm.
conformation, it's not the same sport,
Hmm.
breed related sports. And like my example, again, I was rescue. Patricia Arson, who brought the first dogs in, was also rescue.
Oh, interesting.
Couple people who had dogs from the first litter, one that went on to have another litter. Um, all had rescue. So we came from this different background, but we were so passionate about this breed that we said, all right, let's brave this new world. And we have jumped headlong into preservation breeding.
So you're
It's
rescuing an entire breed rather than a group of animals.
right. Like we were just like, we love this breed so much that we will do anything to keep them alive,
Mm.
even if that means dressing up and going around in a circle. Um,
And so there's only 36 of them in North America. What are the
yes,
numbers like? Are they still living with the indigenous people in Sweden?
absolutely. Yeah, you'll still see them in Sweden and Norway and the Sami people.
Mm.
One of the big kennels, Choppy, she just had a litter, and a couple of them went off to go do reindeer work. A couple went off to go hunting, and a couple are going to start showing.
Oh,
You see that still. Most of the dogs today are on 3 continents: Europe, North America, and then we have a couple in Australia.
oh, interesting.
Random Australia. um, that's it. We don't have any in South America, Central Asia, Africa. That's it. There are
Mm.
less than 1,600 in the entire world.
Wow.
That's it.
Wow.
We know every breeder. We have records everywhere. It's a huge tracking system. And that's why when people tell me, oh, I have a rescue one from random Podunk, Nevada shelter, and I'm like, you
No,
likely
you
do
don't.
not.
No, you don't. Okay, so herding dogs who barked to herd. Talk about living with these dogs.
I'm going to say that surprisingly, they are really easy to live with.
Okay.
When they bark, they should be barking for a purpose. They're not going to bark because the wind is blowing.
Mm,
Um, that would be annoying. And if you think about it,
yes.
that was probably annoying back then. If you had a
Mm.
dog that just randomly barked for no reason and it scared the reindeer, well, shoot, they're not going to do their job correctly. You don't even know it, but I have 2 of them in the room right now who've not said a single peep. Um, that said, we do have some that are on the opposite side that are much more barky.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's just a wide range,
Mm.
but living with them in general, as I said, I've had experienced so many breeds, and I'm also a professional groomer, so I
Oh,
have hands on breeds
sure.
all the time.
Sure.
They're so easy to live with. Like it just makes life so easy to come home and have a dog that they're like, "Hi, how are you today?"
Right.
And just want to cuddle.
Do they get along, like no dog aggression, no people aggression? They're just that
Yeah,
is not a thing.
aggression is a serious DQ for us. Like
Mm.
we handle that severely.
Mm.
So, no aggression of any kind towards dogs, same sex or not. You may see some intact males squabble a little bit, but it's
Dogs.
intact.
Yeah.
Hormones, yeah. They should be good with small animals.
Mm.
I have 2 cats. We have one that has rabbits. A lot of people have chickens.
Mm.
They should do well with any small animal that they've been introduced to, that they know is part of the family.
Sure.
I've actually had one of my dogs greet the feral cat that roams around our backyard. They're like, "Oh, hi, how are you today?" I wish they would scare her off.
Yeah,
but,
right. I can loan you a wire hair. It'll be okay.
So small animals, we know one person who goes riding on her horses and the dog just trots along behind the horses. Just
Okay.
perfect when it comes to that. They adore children. Absolutely love children almost to death. Like, it is a love. Funny story, at the one show I was at, it was late. This is like the last show of the weekend. The dogs were drained. It was pouring rain. And we were outside. This is that Norwalk show here in New England. If
Oh,
everyone
yeah.
remembers that show, it was
Oh, yeah.
pouring rain. And the dogs are just drained. People are drained. And then these kid spectators come up and you see the dogs go from like 0 to 10. Like, they're just, oh my God, kids. So they're the perfect family. And that's, most of the dogs in the States are actually in family homes.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you're in FSS aiming towards the herding group. Yes.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something earlier in an email or something. I think you have plans. Are you looking at being able to move up to miscellaneous? Where are you in that process?
We're a long way.
Yeah. 36 dogs, you're pretty far.
Right. We're a very long way. And I think right now our plan is just to have healthy growth.
Mm.
We are not aiming for speed. We know that speed isn't going to get us exactly what we need. We want a good solid community of people, and we want a good, healthy community of dogs. So if that means it takes another couple decades to get there, so be it.
It's all good. And speaking of health, any particular notable, extra random, weird health stuff for these guys?
Nope.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, we do test for hip dysplasia, but I would say only about 7% of the breed is likely to have it. All breeders should be testing their puppies for PRA, progressive retinal atrophy, before they leave. And we do recommend to have an eye exam as well. Eye issues aren't common, but they're a Spitz breed. Spitz are prone to eye issues in general. Sure. So it's better to do that than not. We haven't had a case of PRA in probably close to a decade. Despite that we allow clear to carrier, but we're so careful. Like, the community is just on point when it comes to health testing. It's a weird thing if you see one that's not from health tested stock.
Well, clear to carrier, you shouldn't be getting any affected dogs anyway. So
exactly.
With that small a gene pool, I hope you're doing clear to carrier.
Yes, exactly. Cancer's not high. Really, a handful of cases, like I think maybe one hand of epilepsy or Addison's, and they're not related to each other. So it's just that random thing. Yeah. I mean, our health has gotten so much better in general. When I joined, I would say in the early 2000s too, and then 2010, the average litter size was like 3 dogs. Like, inbreeding depression was there.
Yeah.
It's now 6.
Good.
In 15 years, they have brought the average litter size way up.
Nice.
Dogs live to like 13, 14 years old now with very little problems.
So intentional selective breeding versus maybe not as much so with the indigenous people.
Even the indigenous people were very careful.
Okay.
Like, they used good maternal stock. It was mostly the maternal lines that were that mattered. Because a lot of times, and this is, anthropologists used to, tell the stories of how they would literally tie the healthy female out. They would only keep one good, healthy female, maybe a couple others, but they had to be a really good female. And they would tie her up and let her decide the male.
Oh, interesting.
So it was like, that's a random way of doing this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was healthy and healthy. Like, these were dogs that were working. These were dogs that they had no problems culling back then.
Yeah.
We don't know if they're still doing that now. We sort of hope not, but
it's a thing. I mean,
it's a thing.
That's most of our breeds started that way, so
exactly. But to this day, we still have. I mean, even the indigenous people today, they're still really good about breeding healthy stock. Like, we shouldn't be breeding dogs that are sick.
Yeah.
And the majority of the club, so we have, not many people know that in Sweden they have the RAS, the breeding specific protocol.
Right.
Breed clubs have to do that every 5 years, and this is a breeding strategy that is developed by the breed club, saying, you have to follow these guidelines.
Mm-hmm.
And so they say, here's what we recommend. And so us as a breed community, we follow that on an international scale.
Okay.
So we have very specific breeding strategies that we have to follow, and the whole community voluntarily follows this.
Interesting. Give me for example.
So if one of the examples is, and this is the one that always kills people when I mention this, we have a cap on how many puppies an individual dog can have.
Male or female?
Male or female, does not matter. So it's based on the percentage per population. So right now, a male or female can have no more, if the recommendation is no more than 16. If you live in Sweden, after 25, they'll revoke the registration of those puppies.
Oh, interesting.
But at 16, that is our recommended cap. And that's to avoid bottlenecks and matadors and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the recommendations. And I remember posting about that in one of the dog groups, and people were just like mind blown about, like, how can you do that? I'm like, well, it's not hard.
Honestly, sensible dog breeding that in order to avoid exactly the, predominant sire syndrome is, I don't know that 16 is the number I'd pick, but a lot less than the 500 that you see out of some of these stud dogs and more popular breeds.
Well, and that's the reason our number is what it is because it's a percentage of the population. Mm-hmm. We don't want that dog, and we have a small population, so 16 is a small number. If the breed population gets to 3,000, I'm sure that number will go up.
There you go. Okay.
But it's to make sure that we don't have a bottleneck, and a bottleneck in a breed this tiny.
Yeah.
We're doomed.
Well, Lapphunds, here we are, right? So right. A lot of the breeds that are in small numbers have those sorts of struggles. Okay, and final question, you'll do herding events. Will they participate in like AKC herding events, or can they now?
Yeah, actually they can. So Patricia Arfston actually has herding titles on her dogs, and the Clary Hill Kennel. So she actually has herding, but you'll see a Swedish Lapphund doing everything.
Very cool. Very cool. I really appreciate this, Desiree. This is so cool.
No problem.
Like archetypes and haplotypes. I'm like all about it.
We love talking genetics in the breed. It's really easy to find somebody in the breed and just like, let's just geek talk in genetics for a little bit. It's so easy and so much fun.
Cool. Excellent. Well, I really appreciate you sharing with us. I know that you will send us some photos I see a tail. That's a cat, not a dog. Okay.
That's a cat. My cat will leave me alone. He was bothering the one dog laying on top of her, and then he was like, I'm going to bother you while you're recording.
It's a cat. Definitely a cat. All right. Well, Desiree, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. And
no problem.
I'll let you go deal with Mr. Kitty, who's mad.